What up, ministry leaders and directors? Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about what it looks like to not just work in your ministry, but work on the ministry that you lead. And we've talked about this before, but I want to kind of give you a specific assignment, and hopefully this will give you kind of some new ways to actually start taking those next steps to develop and work on your ministry in 2018. So about 80% of your time should be devoted to working in your ministry. Something that I would like to call the whirlwind. The whirlwind of just the everyday nuances of things that just honestly have to get done. Things like scheduling volunteers, rehearsal, writing curriculum, preparing for your student group Wednesday night meetings, things that all of us just simply have to do. But if you're not careful, the whirlwind, these everyday things, begins to creep into the 85, 90, 95, or 100% of your time. And when this begins to happen, you begin to feel stuck. You feel like you're working really, really hard, and it's an uphill battle, and nothing seems to really get accomplished. You're just kind of putting out fires all the time. It can be very easy to get discouraged, and it's because you feel like nothing's improving. And this usually results in burnout and discouragement. So not to mention, on top of all of those things, probably the most important thing to realize is the impact of your ministry simply will not grow if you're only working in your ministry. So what must we do to fight to set aside 20% of our time from our day-to-day whirlwind to make sure we are working on our ministry, making sure we're doing things like considering what's the next step for our ministry area? What is one way we can improve our structure to be more efficient and effective? How can we be innovative and actually execute new ideas? Because if you do not fight for it, you will take up all of your time doing things within your whirlwind. And you say, buddy, this sounds like you're giving me more work to do. And maybe at first it might take a little extra time, especially initially when you're considering goals like we're going to be talking about today. But overall, I think this should save you time. And here's something very, very important. This is why I think it should save you time. One, not only does it usually set up more effective structures and things that can be done more efficiently, but two, hear me say this. I am okay temporarily sacrificing some quality of the whirlwind in order to gain innovative and proactive leadership from you. I'm okay sacrificing a little of the quality of the whirlwind to gain innovative and proactive leadership from each and every one of you, because if you do not take that initiative to be proactive in your leadership and taking next steps for your organization, ministry area, it simply will not happen. So if you say, buddy, that requires me to take an hour from my time in the whirlwind and it doesn't get done perfectly, I am okay with that. Fight for that hour to be put in to this 20% to work on your ministry. So it may mean saying no and lacking a little quality temporarily in order to say yes to something even more important. And I am completely okay with that, because I think overall the impact of your ministry will grow. So today I want to tell you one way that we will work on our ministries in 2018. And I say we because our campus, myself included, I've just been really convicted that this is something that we need to do as leaders in order to continue to grow in 2018. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you about what does it look like for each and every one of us, including myself, to set one wildly important goal, or WIG is what we're going to refer to it for the next 10 minutes or so. One wildly important goal, one WIG for each ministry area that we lead. So one for worship ministry, one for student ministry, one for children's ministry, one for myself as the pastor and discipleship culture leader of this church. And I'm going to talk with you about how to set this goal, how to progress towards the goal, and how you know when you have achieved the goal. So first things first, let's talk about how do we pick our WIG. The WIG has to be the most important thing for you in 2018. I want you to think about what is the most important thing for me as a ministry director, ministry leader in 2018. Think of the one thing that if this happened, unlimited growth would occur because of that. Don't think about how it needs to get done. Just first start thinking about what needs to get done. And again, I'm just asking for one goal. So pick it well. Spend time brainstorming different ones. You might write down 7, 8, 10 different ones and cut it down to 2 or 3. And I'd love to help you be a part of this process. If you want to give me a call, shoot me a text, maybe an email of here are some things that you're thinking. But you need to be very specific. So I'm just asking for one wildly important goal. And you need to be the one that picks it because you are the one that knows your ministry best. So as you're considering what this wig should be, you need to remember what our mission is. Our church, our mission is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus by setting up environments for them to encounter God, experience community, and engage the culture. So your wig ultimately should be filtered through this mission of helping lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. So now that you've kind of been thinking about what your wig would be and what would be the most impactful for the area of ministry that you lead, let's talk about how the goal needs to be structured. Your goal, it needs to be both measurable and have an end date. So structure your wig in a way that it's measurable and has an end date. I don't want generic goals like my wig is to encourage volunteers more this year, or my wig is to improve my ability to play guitar. No, your wig, it needs to be measurable. It needs to be something like, I want to add 15 volunteers by August 15th. I want to learn how to play 12 new songs by the end of this year. So the way that you set up your wig as you're thinking about it is I want you to structure your wig like this. I will go from X to Y by Z. I will go from X to Y by Z. It is measurable and it has an end date. So some examples, we will go from 18 children's ministry volunteers to 30 children's ministry volunteers by June 31st. Or I will go from knowing how to play 30 songs on the guitar to 42 songs on the guitar by December 31st. Be thinking of, again, these are just rough examples, be thinking of the most important goal and then start thinking of how can you put this in a way that can be measured and has an appropriate, realistic end date for it. So after you have your one wig in time, it's time to establish how you will reach your goal in order to achieve that wig. And the way that you reach your goal is by establishing what we're going to call lead measures. Lead measures. A lead measure is a planned action of execution that will directly impact your progress of your wig. A planned action of execution that will directly impact your progress of your wig. So notice, it's planned out and has a direct impact on your wig. Let me give you an example of lead measures. My wig for 2018 as pastor of this church is Northridge Community Church will go from 1 service to 2 services by September 9th of 2018. So I got my X, 1 service, I got my Y, 2 services, and I got my end date by September 9th of 2018. And the reason why I picked this wig, this is my one wig, is because if we do this successfully, usually there is a 20% increase in attendance in the weeks that follow directly because you have had this split within 2 services. That makes people invest and invite more. It gives you more room to grow. And if there are more people in service on Sunday mornings, more people will encounter Jesus, and if more people encounter Jesus on Sunday morning, I really think more people will grow in a relationship with the Lord directly from that. So that's how my wig fits in our overall mission. I also think it's going to be really healthy for our children's ministry volunteers to have 2 services so they can serve one, attend one. But for me, I'm going to be thinking, how can I, by September 9th, help our church be healthy enough to go from 1 services to 2 services? Because there's a lot more that goes into it besides just saying we're going to have a 2nd service. So let's chat about my lead measures. Here are going to be a few of my lead measures. My first one is going to be this. I will add 20 volunteers by August 15th, and I will do that by contacting 2 potential volunteers a month and having a conversation with them. And I will also do that by having 1 conversation with one of our directors, either in children's ministry, First Impressions, or worship ministry. 1 conversation a month with the director on how we can do a better job recruiting. So notice my lead measure has a planned action and it directly impacts my wig, because if we have 20 more volunteers, then we can then have enough volunteers to go 2 services. If we don't get 20 more volunteers, we will not have enough volunteers to go 2 services. Second lead measure for me is this, is increase our auditorium attendance by 20 by August 15th. By August 15th. So that's a lead measure. So I need to sit down and think about what can we do, because unless our attendance grows by about 20 in our auditorium, we will not be ready to go to services. What are the things I need to do in order to take that step in order to get closer to the WIG? Third one is this, is I will meet with our worship leader, our children's ministry director, and first impressions director by July 31st to ensure we have a plan of action in place to smoothly go into 2 services. I need to understand that there are a lot of things that go into a Sunday morning, from volunteers to what time that people need to get there, to making sure we don't have burnout with our directors. So that's a lead measure of something I need to get done in order for this to be accomplished. My fourth one is this, I will begin advertising for our new service in 5 different ways, including the feed, listening guides, social media, our website. I'll begin advertising 5 different ways every week starting 5 weeks from the projected 2 service date. And my last lead measure is I will restructure our VIP service to accommodate our new 2 service format by August 15th. I want you to notice all of these things were very specific. All of them had an end date. Some of them were one-time things. Many of them were continual things. And they're things that I have to go by that if I do the lead measures, the WIG should occur. Now let me explain to you what a poor lead measure is. This is an example of something that is not a lead measure. So an example of something that is not a lead measure. If your WIG was to grow your average student group attendance from 4 students to 8 students by May 31st, a lead measure would not be add 1 person a month from now till May. And you say, well, why not, buddy? If you do that, then by May 31st, you will have more than 8 students. But the reason why this is not a good lead measure is because this is simply an abbreviated version of your WIG and is not planned action. Your lead measure is not giving you a direct planned action from this. We call this a lag measure. What you have there is just an abbreviated version of your WIG, or a lag measure, which is your expected progress towards your WIG that is caused by your lead measure. So think of the lead measure as the cause and the lag measure is the effect. And if you have enough effects of lag measures and progress in lag measures, you should get to your WIG. So a better example for that would be, instead of saying I'm going to just add 1 student a month because there's no planned action, it would be I'm going to have monthly meetings with my other leaders in the student group in order to help continue to equip them to have spiritual conversations. That would be more of a direct lead measure in that situation. So let me give you an example of a lag measure, because lag measures are important. We just can't confuse them with lead measures. What a lag measure is, an example of a lag measure is this, is if my goal was to add 20 volunteers by the end of August, and we had only added 3 volunteers by the end of March, I would know that I am off of my pace of 20 by the end of August. So as you evaluate your lag measures, it should help you understand how close you are towards your WIG and if you're making progress. So here's the thing you need to know. If your lag measure is not making progress towards your WIG, you need to change your lead measure. You need to change your lead measure. You can't just say, the results are going to happen. If the results are not happening like they are expected to, there's something that needs to be changed in your WIG, in your lead measure. Don't change your WIG. If that is something that God has laid on your heart, if that's an important goal, you don't change the goal, you change how to get to the goal. And there's a good chance here in a couple months, whenever your lag measure is not where you thought it should be, some of us are going to have to tweak our lead measures. That's perfectly fine. That's called being proactive and being productive. So how do you know if your lag measure is on target? If you're measuring your lag measure and trying to figure out, hey, how do I know if I'm on target and appropriately growing towards the WIG at a good rate? Well, what you do is you create a scoreboard. You create a scoreboard. You need to remember your WIG should be something that can be measured and is not generic. And if it's something that can be measured, then you should be able to create a scoreboard. And this is what I mean by creating a scoreboard. For my example of going 2 services, my overall scoreboard is this. Either you have 1 service or you have 2 services. So it's pretty easy to keep score with that, 1 service or 2 service. But there are other ways that I can keep score of my lag measures to see if I am making progress towards my WIG. And this is what I mean. I can begin to track how many volunteers we have added each month to see if I am on pace to reaching that 20-person mark by the end of August. I can also track how many people I have contacted directly that month. If I have a goal of doing 2 a month and it's mid-month and I haven't contacted any, I can keep score and say I need to do at least 1 this week to stay on track. I can track auditorium attendance. I can do many different things by tracking what has been done and what needs to be done. And as you create visuals, whether that's a pie graph, whether that's a scoreboard, whether that's a yes or no type philosophy where you say I've done it or I haven't done it, it's either a success or a fail based on that. You have to do something to help you create score, to give you accountability, to give you encouragement, to help you celebrate wins, but also evaluate when your lag measure is not occurring. So if I'm not meeting with people twice a month, I need to change something. If I'm not taking steps to helping our Sunday morning auditorium grow in attendance, I need to do something to change that. As I keep score, I can evaluate where I'm at in reference to my WIG. So the last thing I want to talk about this is for your WIG, you need to have a weekly report of your progress towards other people in your ministry, and such as myself and even other leaders. And what this does is this helps you think about what your next step is. It creates accountability. It helps others celebrate wins with you. And it also helps you improve on maybe your lead measures if the scoreboard is not where you want it. So we as a church right now, we don't have time to have small weekly WIG meetings in person, but we will have WIG meetings weekly, and I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that in a moment. But here's what I want to ask that you do. This might spend or require you to spend a little extra energy and effort these first couple weeks, but I think in the long run it's going to help our church tremendously and help the impact of your ministry directly. But over the next couple weeks, I want you to be thinking of the WIG for yourself in your ministry this year that will help our overall ministry accomplish our goal of leading people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And write down as many potential WIGs as you can, narrow them down until you have the one that you think is your wildly important goal. And if you want to talk to me about that, I'd love to help you and be a part of this process. Don't hesitate to let me know if you need some input. But ultimately, this WIG should come from you. And then from there, I just want you to think of at least 3 lead measures. At least 3 lead measures. These measures should be things that you directly have influence over, that you directly can impact, and that should be realistic steps that you can take and you can lead and influence in order to help the WIG be accomplished. And I want to hear what your WIG is in a couple weeks. I want to know what those 3 lead measures are and how often you plan on acting on them. Is this a one-time thing? Is this something that you're going to do daily, weekly, monthly? And then from there, I need you to create a scoreboard. Think of how to track your lag measure. Think of how to create a system to track your progress, and let me know what that is as well. So think of a WIG, think of 3 lead measures, and then think of a scoreboard simply of, hey, how are we going to track if your progress is going well? So here in a couple weeks, we're going to begin acting on those lead measures. In a couple weeks, I ask that you put those things into action. And in a couple weeks, what we're going to do is in our weekly eval email that goes out every Monday afternoon, I would like you to briefly include your progress or your planned progress for your WIG. So every week I will mail you out and I'll let you know my progress on how I am doing towards this desire of moving towards 2 services in the fall. And here are some examples of just a very brief, it doesn't have to be in-depth, but very brief report that I would like to get weekly from you on how you're doing with your WIG. It could look something like this. It could be, this past week I met with a volunteer and she's planning on starting to volunteer in 2 weeks. I've now added 3 volunteers to our children's ministry. Or it might be, this month I'm planning on learning this new song, and I plan on practicing it for 20 minutes a week until I learn it by the end of the month. And after this, I will have learned 5 new songs this year. It could be an example of this week I have a meeting set up with our student group leaders 20 minutes before student group to discuss how to equip our students to have spiritual conversations, in hopes that this will help grow our group by our students having spiritual conversations in their schools. So far we have had 2 new students join us this month, and we hope to add 1 more by the end of this month through using spiritual conversations as our focus piece. So whatever it is, I just want a brief update weekly to help keep you accountable, to help me be in the loop, as well as allow us to celebrate whenever you are taking steps towards your wig. So again, I hope you see that I'm not asking you to do much more aside from an initial assessment and then stay laser focused on what is most important. Hopefully this will help you use your time more effectively and maybe even make it easier for you to say no to the things that don't directly impact your wig. So please feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Text me, call me, whatever you need. And I do ask, after you finish watching this video, just send me a text saying you watched it and that you will begin looking and evaluating your wig over these next couple of weeks, and we will take it from there. So I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.